So today we're diving into India's 2026-27 budget. But this isn't just a story about numbers. It's really a story of two Indias. The plan is to pour a whole lot of resources into both the country's huge rural heartland and its booming fast-paced cities. So how on earth do you fuel both of those engines at the exact same time? Well, let's find out.
Okay, let's just start with this absolutely massive number, 41.3 lakh crore rupees. I mean, to put that into perspective for you, that's somewhere around half a trillion US dollars. Think of this number as the entire financial engine for the nation for the whole next year. It's funding everything from roads and defense to healthcare, and for our story today, development. And that leads us right to the big question for this explainer. When you've got that much money on the table, how do you even begin to balance the needs of two totally different worlds? How do you invest in the villages that have been the traditional backbone of the nation while also powering the cities that are really driving its future? Let's dig in. All right, first up, let's take a look at the heartland. A huge, huge portion of this budget is aimed squarely at strengthening rural India. And that makes sense, right? It's still the foundation of the national economy. So the first number that just jumps off the page is this one, 2.4 lakh crore rupees. That's the total amount set aside just for the Department of Rural Development. It's a massive commitment, and it really signals a major focus on the country's agricultural and rural base. And when you dig a little deeper, you see this isn't just one big pot of money. No, it's being targeted very specifically. Look at this. Over 44,000 crore rupees are going directly into creating rural jobs. Almost 3,600 crore are for special development programs, and there's even funding for something as fundamental as land reforms. And tucked away inside this budget is a brand new flagship program. It's called the Rural Prosperity and Resilience Program. And the idea behind it is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly ambitious: to energize the rural economy from all sides at once. This quote really gets to the heart of the whole strategy. The goal isn't to stop people from moving to cities if they want to. It's about making villages so economically strong that leaving becomes a genuine choice, not something you're forced to do. It's a really fundamental shift, It's all about building self-sufficient local economies. So the big question is, how are they planning to pull this off? Well, the strategy is pretty clear, broken down into 3 steps. First, you've got to train the rural workforce for the jobs of today. Second, you need to attract private investment into these areas. And third, and this one's key, you have to bring in technology to boost productivity and connect rural producers to much bigger markets. Now let's talk about something incredibly basic, a fundamental human need: a place to call home. This massive figure, we're talking nearly 55,000 crore rupees, is the budget for the rural part of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is India's huge affordable housing program. And again, this isn't just about throwing money at a problem and hoping for the best. The goals are super specific. The target is to build 4 million new homes. And crucially, a really big chunk of these are specifically for marginalized communities. So what's the end game? To slash rural homelessness by a whopping 80%. Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about India's other engine of growth, its cities. Because while the heartland is getting a major boost, the budget is also making a massive investment in creating modern, efficient, and, future-ready urban centers. The headline number for urban development is over 85,000 crore rupees. This is the total for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. And it's a huge signal of a major push to modernize basically everything in India's cities, from transport to public services. And just like with the rural funds, the details here really tell the story. A giant piece of the pie, over 28,000 crore, is for expanding metro rail systems to fight that insane city traffic. Over 12,000 crore is for urban housing, and 5,000 crore goes to the Clean India mission for cities. So you've got a really clear focus: transport, housing, and sanitation. These are the pillars of any functional city. And mirroring what's happening in rural areas, there's a brand new vision for cities too. It's a 1 lakh crore rupee urban challenge fund. But here's the twist. This isn't just a handout. It's actually a competition, and it's designed to spark some serious innovation among cities. So how is this whole thing going to work? Well, it's set up to finance specific, really forward-thinking proposals that come from the cities themselves. And the focus areas are crystal clear: Projects that turn cities into economic growth hubs, that creatively redevelop urban spaces, and that finally tackle those core challenges of water and sanitation. This side-by-side comparison of the housing schemes really shows you the tailored approach perfectly. In rural areas, the problem is often just a basic lack of housing, so the investment is huge, 4 million new homes. But in cities, the real challenge is affordability, right? So the focus is way more targeted, 1 million affordable units in these super expensive urban centers. It's two different problems with two very different solutions. So, we've seen these massive numbers for both rural and urban India. But this brings us to what's probably the most important question of all. How do you actually make sure all these crores, all these billions, lead to genuinely better lives for people? The answer, really, it comes down to accountability. The government has put this system in place called the Output Outcome Monitoring Framework, or OMF. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a public report card for government spending. It forces a shift in focus from the old question of how much money did we spend to the much, much more important question, what did we actually achieve with it? And here is a perfect example of how that framework works in the real world. On one side, you see the input, nearly 55,000 crore for the rural housing scheme. And on the other, you see the required output, a clear, measurable 80% reduction in homelessness. It creates this direct, undeniable link between the money spent and a life-changing result. And so that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? The plans are all laid out, the money has been allocated, the tracking systems are in place, but the real test, the hard part, is just beginning, execution. Because at the end of the day, the success of this massive budget won't be measured in lakh crores, but in the number of lives it actually manages to change.